Money, 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 and not that type of money that a certain New Jersey senator is accused of taking. No, on today's
Better advocacy in 10 minutes or less.
we're talking about the type of money that it will cost the government to turn your passion into policy and how you can make sure that number is as low as possible. Now, when we think about our passion, we forget that passion doesn't run policies. Money does. Just because a bill is right or just or even makes sense doesn't mean it will become law. Those elected officials are looking at how much it will cost. And in every state except for two, looking at you, Indiana and Vermont, you have to have a balanced budget so every policy is fighting for limited resources. Now, to give your policy the best chance at getting those resources, this video is going to show you one, how to figure out how much your bill costs, two, how to minimize costs, and three, how to justify the costs. Okay, figuring out how much your bill will cost varies from state to state. In Virginia, every bill that's introduced has a fiscal impact statement, or FIS. This is an estimate of the amount of money it's going to cost the government to implement your bill. The higher the FIS, the less likely you are to get your legislation passed. Now, your opinions don't matter in this. The department that the bill affects gives some numbers to the Virginia Department of Planning and Budget, then the DPB creates a pretty little sheet explaining what it costs and if a budget amendment is needed. If the impacted department likes your bill, they'll usually say, you know what, we can do this with existing staff. And you're golden, no fiscal impact. If they don't, then they'll either provide an honest estimate of what it's going to cost, or, and this really sucks, they'll make up some big numbers to scare any politician away from voting for it. Yes, this really happens. It's happened to me and countless others on prison reform bills. If you're lucky, you'll get this a week or so before the first hearing so you can address any concerns that legislators may have. Or, more importantly, counter any misconceptions of your bill that made it into the fiscal analysis process. Now, this brings us to our second point. How do you minimize cost? First, double check the fiscal analysis work. If you see an error, bring it to the attention and get an amended fiscal impact statement. Yes, this can happen. These are people reading your bill. They can misread numbers or misinterpret clauses. If they correct it, great. If they insist that a certain wording will require expenses you don't intend, get their advice on how to amend the language to remove those expenses and then have your legislator introduce an amendment. Now, another trick is to align your bill to current operating procedures. Operating procedures aren't in your state's laws, but they are policies that have been adopted by an agency that state how it should run. Now, it doesn't mean this is what they are actually doing with the money the state gives them, but it does tell you what they should be doing with the resources the budget has allocated to them. I was working on a bill to improve conditions of confinement for folks in Virginia's prisons, and we got hit by a huge fiscal impact statement. I'm talking tens of millions of dollars. When we read through it, we saw the Department of Corrections said they'd have to hire new psychiatrists and on call physicians for every prison. Now, this wasn't our intent, so we reviewed their operating procedures with budget staff and found a way to achieve our goal without adding staff and shaved about $30 million. Yes, that's $30 million off of that fiscal impact statement. Another option that I think is the most effective, but also most difficult way to minimize costs is to meet together with key budget and department officials to talk about options. Now, this is an advanced strategy because you'll need support from someone with a significant amount of political power to make this happen. I've pulled this off before with the support of senior senators in the majority party. Now, if you get this opportunity, you want to make the most of it. Do your research. Understand the department's operating procedures. Have data from other states about needed staffing levels and actual costs, and be ready to counter any inflated suggestions and be listening to what they say. Since these meetings are with budget officials and electeds, that targeted department will need to be more forthcoming than they are with you as an advocate or lobbyist. You never know when something might come out that you can now use to make your bill better. All right, now you've done everything you can to reduce the cost of your bill, and you're still left with a fiscal impact. That means you have to justify the cost. Now, legislators understand that good policy costs money, but they want to make sure The new policies they enact are the best use of their state's limited resources, so you have to make the argument that this is the best use. Every state is different. In Virginia, future savings aren't calculated into fiscal impact statements, and even the most well connected lobbyists struggle to convince legislators to vote for a bill with a high fiscal impact statement, even if it's going to be offset by future savings. Now, if legislators in your state take into account future savings, do your research and show how other states have saved money, but be specific. Compare line items with existing department budgets to what future department budgets will look like. Show how making your policy fix would reduce later stage costs in other areas of the budget. And I'll say it again because it's that important, be specific. Yes, use examples from other states that are demographically similar to yours that have adopted a policy similar to your proposal. One of the easiest ways to make this argument is to show how your bill would cause less resources to be spent on existing programs. I worked with a legislator on allocating money for dam repair. We had significantly less money than it would cost to fix all the dams on the list. Some were public, some were private, and some were somewhere in between. But we only had a couple of days to make our decision, so we had to base it off of which repairs would have the highest likelihood of reducing future expenses. The dam repairs that got funded were the ones with advocates that could prove the highest potential costs if something went wrong. Now, the final strategy I use to counter high fiscal impact statements is to argue that it will lead to less lawsuit losses. This works best with fiscal conservative or law and order legislators, even if it's not in a law and order space of policy. They hate to see their government departments lose in court and have to pay damages and court fees. Actually, they can't even stand to see government officials doing things shady enough that a court will actually allow a lawsuit to be heard. I was working on a rather progressive issue in very purple Virginia, but because Virginia has sunshine laws, we were able to FOIA legal expenses for court cases and show that the state was spending millions upon millions of dollars a year on outside counsel to defend the practices we were fighting to change. By showing the hidden expenses of the existing policy, that became a key part of our successful multi year effort to turn our passion into policy while saving the state some money. There you go. 3 steps to successfully use the fiscal impact of your bill to get it into law. Remember, number 1, figure out your bill's cost. Number 2, minimize that cost. And number 3, 1, 2, 3, justify the cost. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you have other strategies that have worked for you in the past? And be sure to check out more of my
Better advocacy in 10 minutes or less.
videos.